am Black Success.
What is good? It's been a long time since being with you, but always exciting when I get a chance to hop on. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Stephen A. Hart. So today I was giving thought to the fact that the higher you climb, the fewer people look like you. And for Black men, that reality comes with its own set of pressures. And so today I'm talking with a dear friend, somebody who I've had the pleasure of having conversations with so many times. And I am referring to Mr. Alfred Edmond. Welcome, my brother. How are you?
I am doing so well. I only answer that question two ways: excellent or amazing. On a regular day, I'm doing excellent. And on a tough day, I have to be amazing. Today is an excellent day. It's not tough. It's just a good day.
Alfred, you've had, we've recently shared in a good conversation, and you've had a long and rewarding career at Black Enterprise. And you've also had a front row seat, right, to see the rise and also the challenges faced by countless Black leaders, especially Black men. When you hear the phrase hypervisibility paired with isolation, what comes to mind for you personally?
Well, and let me say again, you and I talk all the time. So something that times I think I take it for granted, but I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and share my thoughts with your audience today. Another reason why today is an excellent day. But yeah, Black Enterprise exists. And so in that way, my career exists. Yes, we're a media company. Yes, we were known for publishing a monthly magazine. Yes, we're now known for our digital offerings, our video podcast series, our national business events. But the first thing I kind of learned when I came to Black Enterprise was we were here as a solution for the hypervisibility that we may be talking about Black people in corporate America. But the truth is, especially when Black Enterprise was founded now 55 years ago, we're celebrating our 55th anniversary now, almost everywhere an accomplished Black person went. You're talking about in the 70s and 80s was the era of the Black first. I'm the first Black person to go to this college. I'm the first Black person admitted to this system. I'm the first Black person in this corporation, this particular job. So when I came into Black Enterprise in the late 80s, I learned early that part of our job was to create safe spaces for the isolated and to make them feel less isolated. And what did that look like? My first big team project when I joined Black Enterprise as a junior editor, what we called associate editors back then, was the very first list of top Blacks in corporate America. We're talking about 1988. This is how long ago it was. There were no women on that list. There was 25 people. The youngest person on that list was Ken Chenault, who, of course, went on to be the chairperson of American Express. So that's how long ago it was. Well, at some point, so we did that list. It was 25 people, 25 Black men. Most of them never knew the other ones existed. That's what the isolation. They were at the tops in their respective companies. They were rising stars in their industries. But for each one of them, they were like, I thought I was the only one in my industry. Thought I was the only one in this part of the country or they didn't even know that each other existed. And so I remember once we published that issue, and for those of you who are historians, it was the February 1988 issue of Black Enterprise. We brought them all together, our then headquarters in Manhattan, 135th Avenue offices at the time. And that was the first time they realized, like, they were still unicorns, but they weren't like the only unicorn in the universe. They were like, oh my God, there's people just like me. And a lot of that connecting is what laid the foundation for organizations like the Executive Leadership Council, which is now a national organization of Black corporate leaders, other organizations like the National Black MBA Association. Those organizations may have existed back then, maybe. I don't know if the ELC did yet, but we realized that our job was to take these high achieving, but like you said, isolated people and connect them to one another so that there's less isolation and there's more of an idea. There's somebody I can call. There's somebody who they may be in a different country, in a different company, in a different industry, but they know what I'm dealing with. That's really what, when all said and done, with all the iterations of Black Enterprise, like other media companies changing from print to digital and all the other stuff, our job is to help create solutions to help address that isolation in tangible ways.
That is such an amazing story, Alfred. Always the king of great stories and wisdom shared. Let me ask you personally, has there been moments where in your own leadership journey, you talked about being at Black Enterprise since the late 80s. Talk to me about when you maybe had a moment where the pressure to overperform was almost overwhelming for you.
Yeah, I think for many Black people, and I would say Black men in particular, the first time it happens is even before you start in the world of work. For me, it was when I first went off to college. So I grew up in a town on the Jersey Shore that I love dearly, Long Branch, New Jersey, which was a relatively small town. Only one high school, only one elementary school. No, one high school, one middle school, 9 elementary schools, racially diverse neighborhood, racially diverse town. That doesn't mean we didn't have our issues, but we're like Long Branch first and then Black, or we're Long Branch first and then white. We all identify very strongly with our hometown. And I was identified as academically gifted before preschool. So I was one of the smart kids in the town. And I knew that. And I had led with that confidence in my intellectual abilities that I didn't have necessarily in other areas because I was undersized. Although I love sports, I wasn't built for the sport that I love, which is football. But I knew I had this up here. Well, despite my academic success growing up and despite being pegged by the people around me as someone who had potential stamped on, like I knew from 3rd grade I was going to college. I didn't know anything about college. I didn't know anybody who went to college. Certainly didn't know anybody who looked like me who went to college. And so fast forward, I graduate near the top of my class in my high school. And I go to what ended up being Rutgers University, the largest university in New Jersey. It was considered one of the public Ivies even back then. And for the first time, I'm in this big environment. I was on financial aid. I was an EOF student. And so academically, I was qualified to be there. But in my own head, especially after I was in the summer program, which was like the kind of the EOF summer program to get mostly Black and Latino students adjusted. And that was wonderful. But then when the rest of the students came in the fall and you realize, man, talk about chocolate chips and the ice cream, and you realize, again, isolation. And then you're telling yourself, and this is someone who graduated, I think I was number 23 in a class of 300 in my high school, started doubting whether I had the academic chops to make it. Started, really being afraid. Stephen, I was so afraid that I didn't have it, that I took there was an Air Force exam I took. Because in my head, I'm going to kind of flunk out my freshman year. And my backup plan was to go into the Air Force. Now, here's the thing. I did so well on the Air Force exam that they were chasing me for 3 years for this special nuclear program they were trying to get me into. But by then, I knew I could make it at Rutgers. But what I'm saying is, I was a young Black man who on paper, and discovered once I got past my fear, Rutgers is a piece of cake. It required work, but it was certainly not a test for me. But that freshman year, man, I was sure I was going to flunk out. I was, like you said, the overperforming. I didn't join any student organizations because I felt like if I took my eye off the ball, I'd end up getting kicked out of school. I would fumble the ball. To put a period on the long story, I found out about Paul Robeson, who by most accounts is the greatest graduate Paul Robeson Rutgers ever had, and found out he was a singer and an actor and an athlete and an attorney. He did everything. And he was good at everything. And that freed me to say, listen, you got it. You're fine. But that experience is what some Black men don't experience for the first time until they go to B school. Or they did fine and they get into the company and they find out, man, this is rough. Maybe this is more than I can handle. At least as a student, I could reach out to other Black students when I was an undergrad. But sometimes you're in a company and you don't know anybody who you can even take this to. You can't even take it to your family because to them, you made it. What do you got to complain about? You got the big job and the big office and the big company. Don't come to me and tell me about your problems. So that can be very isolating because you can't even go to the people you came from because to them, you made it big. You have nothing to complain about.
Alfred, what point was it at Rutgers or was it well into your career at Black Enterprise where you started developing sort of your own circle of trusted mentors and advisors and people you could confide in?
Yeah, it was at Rutgers. And I'm glad you brought that up because I'm literally working on a project right now related to this topic that I'm passionate about. You know how I started building my network? I didn't build it by looking for people to mentor me. My network was built on me deciding early on in my career I was going to mentor other people.
Wow.
And I didn't look at it as mentoring at the time. I'm talking about literally right after I got out of college. I was 22, 23, and I was mentoring, now that I was out in the world of work, I was mentoring undergrads who were still on campus, trying to say, let me tell you what you need to be ready for. Let me tell you why your resume needs to be this. Let me tell you, I was writing recommendations. I was only a year out of school myself. But as long as you're a working professional, nobody asked how old the person who recommended you are. So what I was doing it because I was like, I need to build this network of people I'm helping them. I didn't know it was mentorship at the time. And of course, when they got out, they were helping me. And I built this network that's now huge of people who are like, I can pick up the phone and say, listen, I need this. I need your advice on that. I'm looking at investing in this kind of business. I don't know much about that business, but I know you do. What can you tell me? And I tell people all the time, you need to mentor other people as opposed to spending all your time looking for mentors. People come to me all the time when you mentor me, and I'm usually open to it if I have time. But my first question is, who are you mentoring? Because you have a lot better chance of planting seeds in people with potential that you can help, who may someday, will likely someday be doing something that may even surpass you. Most of my mentees know more about stuff than I know. People say, how do you stay so current? I'm like, I got mentees who are 15, 20 years younger than me who say, no, Alfred, this is what you need. This is why you need to pay attention to AI. Let me show you how to get on Instagram and make it work for you. I've been on Instagram for it seems like forever now, but I remember one of my mentees who was younger than me that was like, nah, bro, you need to be on Instagram. So to answer your question, my foundation of building this strong network that I have now was thinking early on, who can I help? Who can I mentor? Who can I give a piece of information to? Who can I give a job recommendation to? Who can I hit to a job opportunity that hasn't even been posted yet? Because you know the truth. If the job is posted, it's probably gone already. And I was back in the 80s too. Every job I ever got before my first job, I found out about it before people knew about it because somebody in my circle was like, hey, we haven't announced it yet, but we're looking for an associate editor of Black Enterprise. One of my mentors told me that. It wasn't posted yet. I had a head start on everybody who applied for that job because I knew about it in advance and was chasing it before people knew it was out there.
That's such a gem. So for all the young Black professionals listening to us, or maybe you want to share this with somebody who's a young professional coming into the working world, man, that's a gem right there. You might need to tap, rewind, and play that one from Alfred about truly giving before looking to receive. Such a strong gem there on building a good, solid peer network. Black Enterprise XCEL Summit is coming up. I had the pleasure of being at the very first one way back in, I believe, 2016, thereabout.
2017. It was 2017.
2017 as a 2016 honoree of the BE Modern Man 2016 class. And last year had the pleasure of being present, of sharing in our conversation on a panel. And in both instances, let me tell you, it was amazing to be in fellowship in an intimate environment with other amazing, accomplished Black men. And last year was special. I was invited by you to come and speak, but I went ahead and invited several of my college buddies, and they brought friends of theirs. And so we had what became the first annual college reunion at the BE XCEL Summit. Now we're in text threads planning out what we're going to do and when we're connecting and coming in. And so now this is the place that we're planning to gather. And now we're bringing other people. I'm thinking of a dear friend who I had invited because he was laid off at the time. And he came to the event, and the networking that happened, not just being in the rooms, the event itself is amazing. The programming was top notch, but the networking, Alfred, resulted in him making a connection and landing a job. And so there's so much tremendous value about this event.
Yeah. Well, let me start at the top because this is special for me too, because again, you are a BE Modern Man. And BE Modern Man, in many ways, was the precursor campaign that made the idea of the XCEL Summit even come to fruition. Maybe dive a little bit into that history. But let me say at the top, everybody listening, if you give them my personal discount code, which is just my name, Alfred, it'll knock $100 off of the registration rate, whatever it is at the time. I think it's still on early bird right now, but I definitely want to get that out up front so that anybody who wants to come can take advantage of that and just let me know that, yeah, I heard you talking to Stephen, and that's why I'm here. A little bit of trivia. I'm probably one of the few people that remembers that this XCEL was actually an acronym. It's a play on the word Excel, which is great. But it originally stood for, when we conceived it, an extraordinary celebration of excellence in leadership.
I love that.
And it was about our discovery in 2014, 2015, as we were researching, realizing there was no major event that unconditionally celebrated the contributions of Black men if they weren't entertainers or athletes. That just a general award honoring the contributions of Black men in all walks of life didn't exist. Now, yes, if you were a member of a fraternity, they honored their high achieving members, both in the present and historically. If you were in a professional association like the National Association of Black Accountants or that, yes, but just to be recognized for your contributions as a Black man, that didn't exist in 2014, 2015. So the BE Modern Man campaign, which was an online celebration of excellence across every walk of life of Black men, grew out of a frustration that I had about that. Even going back to earlier in my career, before I was at Black Enterprise, I was at a magazine called Modern Black Men. That was a Black men's fashion magazine. Because my original career objective was to get to GQ or Esquire. But you know, I love clothes, I love style. And I had a love-hate relationship with GQ. And the hate part was about the way they only feature Black men if they were rappers or athletes. Even though the things that GQ was about, all the things I was about, fly clothes and travel and culture. But apparently the only reason they dealt with us if we could rap or dribble a basketball. So I would go back and forth. And my other beef with them was the way they treated Black women. Mainly they were non-existent, or there was a very narrow definition of beauty for the women of color they did feature. To make a long story longer, one day somewhere in 2014, I came in and I was fuming mad. And Stephen, you know me. How many times have you ever seen me mad? I'm a very low-key, easygoing guy, but I was so upset. And that's because that issue of GQ came to my house, and they finally had a big spread with a lot of Black women in it. And the spread was about the Magic City Strip Club in Atlanta. There's a business story. And I just was fuming. That day, I came into the office, that meeting, and I was like, what's wrong with Alfred? Because Alfred's never upset about anything. And that led to a conversation about why I was upset. And that led to the birth of BE Modern Man. That's what started.
Wow.
A marketing person, Kelly Pierre Louise, who was at that time a marketing leader at Black Enterprise, said, let's build a campaign that does what GQ and other media platforms won't do. And that's just to celebrate Black men from all walks of life doing amazing things, which is how we learned about you. We crowdsourced it, so people nominated people they knew in their communities. And that became the precursor to what ultimately is now the XCEL Summit for Men. I'm kind of cutting the story short for time, but people need to know our parallel event, the Women of Power Summit, which is going to be in its 20th year in 2026. Already our most successful event by 2015. Yeah. In fact, the 10th anniversary of Women of Power was around the time that BE Modern Man was created. And Women of Power was for Black women in corporate America. And I'm going to try to draw a circle back to your experience bringing your friend and him finding a job. The secret ingredient at the XCEL Summit is the men who are there, because the way we measure the success of our conference is what happens after the conference. This is not just a good time was had by all conference. This is when you are here at this conference, you're going to meet somebody, you're going to gain a connection, you're going to learn something that's going to help you advance toward your career goals tangibly. Not just I met a bunch of cool people, we had a good time, but no, I got a relationship, I got a tactic, I got a skill set, I got an offer, I got an opportunity that if I came here unemployed, next year I'm coming back employed. Or if I came here as a vice president, next year I'm coming back as a senior vice president. If I have ambitions to get into the C-suite, I'm going to pick up stuff here at this XCEL Summit, both relationships, skills, and knowledge that's going to give me a competitive advantage to achieving that goal during the course of my career. That's what we promised the women of Women of Power. That's what we promised the men of Black Men XCEL. So it's not just about we all got together. And in fairness to you, I'm glad you were at the first one. The first, when it was called Black Men XCEL, was just us getting together and reinforcing one another, which was good.
Well, I actually did benefit from the first one, because I tell you, the biggest thing that came away from that event, the awardees of the first event was John Rogers Jr. Of Ariel Investments. And I just happened to be having a conversation with two other people, and I hear the voice of John Rogers standing right behind me. Alfred, the Jamaican in me, got a business card ready, swung around and introduced myself, shared a little bit about the podcast. At the time, the podcast was a year into its run, and I invited him on the show. And I kid you not, his assistant swung around. He's like, talk to Kayla. I was like, Kayla, my daughter is Layla. Let's have a conversation. And so I came away from that event with, at the time, my biggest guest on the show.
Yeah. again, I've been at BE a long time. I hear these stories. These stories energize us because, like you said, it's about tangible result. And John Rogers is a great one of my I would call one of my closest friends in Chicago. Obviously, the legendary founder of Ariel Capital and Investments, Ariel Investments out of Chicago, multiple time Black enterprise cover subject. That's a giant in his space and a giant in general. That story underscores a couple of things. One, when you come to a Black enterprise event, for the most part, there's no velvet ropes. Everybody has access to everybody else. John is a perfect example. If he's at the event, he's not going to be like, no, who are you? He's going to be like, if you're here and I'm here, there's something we can do for each other. And that's one of the themes of being at a Black enterprise event and at Black enterprise in general. But the difference between the way it was when you first came to the first event and what it was coming out of the pandemic was our recognition that it had to be more focused on this group of Black men, as you said, who are largely isolated in these large companies. Again, what we saw the women of power enjoying, that they were like, we're a sisterhood. And, girl, I got you. I know when you go back to your company, just pick up the phone. I got you. We're going to get together. And as a man who got to attend most of the Women of Power summits because I work for Black Enterprise, every year we would leave and say, man, us brothers working in these spaces need this level of energy when we leave a conference. And that's when we came out of COVID. We did a virtual version of the XCEL Summit and then really said, we're going to do for Black women in corporate America. We're going to do that for Black men in corporate America. And now you can see that we always have the mental health sessions like we still do and those sessions, but we have sessions on AI. We're doing a workshop on P&L management for corporate divisions for those people that aspire, because it's hard to get promoted when you can't say, I know how to manage large P&L budgets. So we think of what practical things you need to know to compete for senior VP, executive positions in a large corporation. And then what are the things they don't tell you? Why is it important to be mentally healthy? It's important to be mentally healthy because, working in corporate America is a furnace. It's a gauntlet. You got to be mentally tough to get through. I'm very passionate about the health is wealth thing because it takes a toll on your health if you're not prepared to climb that ladder, if you will. We know the tragic story of former Kaiser Permanente CEO Bernard Tyson at 60, who spoke at a conference and then went to his hotel room and had a heart issue and passed at age 60. So we look at what does it take to succeed in corporate America for Black men, but also what does it take to survive? Because you could be successful and not survive it. So the focus became more narrowly focused in terms of who we were serving, even though, as you know, probably 20% of the current version of the XCEL Summit, entrepreneurs attend because like you said, if you want to have a friend inside a corporation, who will take your call and who actually has budget, and you can say, yeah, I met that brother who was an executive at FedEx, and we sat at the same table and we talked, and he learned about my business. Then you're like, that means when I reach out to him 2 months from now, he'll be like, yeah, Steven, what's going on? What can we do? Let me tell you who you need to talk to. And part of that is why entrepreneurs attend the XCEL Summit, because you get to meet real decision makers with budget who at least will take your call. Now, you still got to bring it in terms of being competent, credible with what you do, but without that access to that network, you're that much further from even getting a conversation about getting a corporate contract or providing services, whether that's executive recruiting or training. I mean, you think of all the things that you have to do to make a large corporation run. They need small businesses and entrepreneurs to do that. And this event is an opportunity for those entrepreneurs to get face time with decision makers.
I love it. There's so many things that you shared. Goodness about the XCEL Summit. In traditional Trailblazer fashion, I'm going to have you share one thing that they're going to gain that they can't get anywhere else but the XCEL Summit.
I guess I got to start out with you kind of hinted at it, talking about John Rogers, who was an honoree that you came the first time, is our XCEL Awards. We kick off with our XCEL Awards. It's the top award honoring the excellence of Black men in the country, I may say in the world. This year, we're honoring Robert F. Smith, Mr. Capital Partners. We're honoring Larry Fitzgerald, former NFL Hall of Famer. We're honoring George Fraser. We're honoring Troy Taylor, who owns one of the largest Coca-Cola businesses in the country. We're honoring John Hope Bryant of Operation Hope. And we're honoring Reverend Franklin Richardson, one of the top both faith and business leaders in the country. And again, these are men who are doing amazing things.
Amazing lineup, yeah.
But they don't dribble a basketball. Larry Fitzgerald did play football, but what we're honoring him for is the work he's doing in tech and business ownership since he left his Hall of Fame career. And yes, Smith is a billionaire, but he does, I mean, just him paying the debt of that whole class at Morehouse College, it would set up a whole new bar for what it meant to leverage your wealth to advance other people. So we kick off with that award. We start out high, set the tone, and carries it from there. So you're already ready to kick down the door after the Excel Awards. And by the way, these men, they don't fly and get the award and fly out. As you said, John Rogers is there. They will be there the next day. They're doing fireside chats. They're interacting during the networking functions. I don't know how many times you get a chance to shake hands with John Rogers, much less invite him on your podcast. And he says, yes, I'll come on. These are the types of opportunities you can't make anywhere else. But those Excel Awards are going to be off the chain this year. Off the chain.
Can just be a confirmation to everything that Alfred said. George Fraser, I had him on the show many years ago, but somebody that came walking through the crowd, stopped, gave me a hug, taking pictures. D.L. Hughley, we're having a social. He's there amongst us.
You and I both go to so many events where there's the velvet rope thing. And we get it. Certain people need to have a certain amount of protection. So I don't want to diss anybody who has a certain amount of security. But there's nothing more frustrating when you take the time and energy to go to a conference, in my opinion, and you're paying top dollar, or if your company is sponsoring you, many of the men who attend the Excel Summit, their corporations are bringing groups of men. And then you're told, yeah, that section is not for you. And our late founder, Earl Graves, who passed away in 2020, and obviously we're celebrating him because it's our anniversary now. He had a thing. If you're important enough to come to the event, then you're already a VIP. If you took the time away from your job or your company, if your company took the time to send you, if you took time away from your family, if you took time away from your business, you don't want to be told, yeah, this is for you and that's for them. So to the best of our ability, sometimes we have a celebrity so big we can't control it all the way. We're like, no, if you're going to be here to get the award, stay at least one day and interact, because that's the whole point. The networking is the whole point.
Tell us one more time how to sign up, how to access your coupon code for a discount.
Okay, so you want to go to blackenterprise.com, hit the events tab. You'll see all our events, but you'll see the Excel Summit for Men, the 2025 Excel Summit for Men. When you register for that event, put in the code, my first name, Alfred, ALFRED, and it'll knock off $100 or whatever I know it's early bird now still. I think after Labor Day it goes up. I think that's what I was told by our marketing team. But whatever it is, you'll get $100 off. Please, I'll be running around, but if you show up there, Steve is right. If you stop me, it's all about us interacting with one another, learning about one another, and learning about what we can do to help each other after the conference, not just how good a time we had at the conference. Yeah, but the code is Alfred.
Love it. Alfred, always great sharing the stage with you. And in a conversation, I'm looking at rebooting the podcast. And one of the things that I truly enjoyed was in February, you sharing your Black legends on the show. And it's an indelible memory of content we've created in the past, and just extending an invite in advance to come back on when we reboot.
Anytime. I got a million stories. The longer I'm at Black Enterprises, you can tell I'm getting more. Anytime, man. Anytime. I've been impressed by you. Again, there's a reason why you got picked as the BE Modern Men. I mean, I could say that the people that we recognized in that campaign, all of you are doing even bigger and better things than you were when we discovered you. And, you're Black Enterprise Extended Family. So all you got to do is call me.
Thank you so much. Good having this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Stephen.